the people I have most respect for are those who found Bitcoin like 10 plus years ago and really understood it at such a deep level so that they could develop the conviction to really buy and hold. And there's only just a very few here in Switzerland, for example. One is maybe...
Hello and welcome to Defire, your go-to podcast for crypto stories, released almost as rarely as the Bitcoin halving. I'm Jonas, your host, and today we're talking with Julian Liniger, the CEO and founder of Relai, an app that claims to be the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. Yes, only Bitcoin, no ETH, no Sol, no meme coins. Julian has chosen this path for a reason, and we'll get into that in our chat today. So is Julian a Bitcoin Maxi? Of course I had to ask him, and we'll find that out as well. Julian's story starts in a small farming village in Switzerland and leads up to launching Relai. And he's here to share why he's bullish on Bitcoin and believes it has a lot more room to grow. We also touch on the big challenges his startup faces, like dealing with an advertisement ban in all European countries, which makes it tricky to acquire new clients. And he will also share some insider tips on raising funds from investors, the company's current valuation, and much more. So this is going to be a fascinating chat you'll want to hear from start to finish. But first, a quick update. Hey there, fellow podcasters. Picture this, you've just finished recording an engaging episode. You are thrilled, but then reality sets in. The editing, the mastering, the endless tweaks. And after that, you have to navigate the maze of platforms to get your episode out there. But what if, once you stopped recording, you were actually done? What if a team of pros took over and polished your podcast to perfection? That's where we come in. We are Ohrzucker, ear sugar in German, and we make your podcast as sweet as it can be. Take Bitcoin Swiss for instance. They are pioneers in the crypto world, and every second they spend away from their core business is a missed opportunity. Since they started working with us, they've been able to focus on what they do best, demystifying the complex world of cryptocurrencies and having meaningful conversations with industry leaders, while we ensure their podcast sounds great and reaches every corner of the internet. Are you ready to improve or start your podcast? Check out ohrzucker.com to see how we can help. You'll find all the details and the link in the description below. That's ohrzucker.com. And now let's start the show. Julian, thank you so much for coming on the show. Actually very excited about this conversation because I feel like you are one of the few Swiss entrepreneurs who is doing something in the crypto space that goes beyond what the banks are doing, let's say, which are maybe a little bit not so exciting from the crypto spirit, so to say. And I think you are embodying that a little bit more purely.
Thank you. That's good to hear. That's also what I try. I feel like in Switzerland, the fintech industry has been the fintech industry overall around the globe has been very interesting and very exciting, and a lot of new developments and innovations have been going on. But in Switzerland, fintech basically is just an extension of the traditional banks. And most of the fintechs, they either start at banks and then they go a little bit outside, or they start outside and then they get closer and closer to the banks. So in the end, the fintechs we have here in Switzerland are mainly also driven by the banks. And so in the end, it's a bit more fancy front end, but the back end is always like pure fiat banking system. And so that's good to hear that, because that's what we're trying to do, really build an alternative to the custodial centralized banking and finance industry with Bitcoin, which is really outside of the system, which is new, which is decentralized, which is peer-to-peer, which can be held self-custodially, because these are the principles where we think there can be huge amount of innovation and not just polishing the old financial world up a little bit.
And you seem pretty young when I look at you. How old are you, Julian?
Yeah, people always think I'm like 20. Sometimes I even have to show my ID to go and buy beer or something, but I'm actually 31.
Okay, yeah, but still young.
Yeah, still young, yeah.
And I
feel young for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know how many peers I think we haven't introduced yourself. You're actually the CEO and founder of Relai app, which is a Bitcoin. Actually, it's better that you explain what Relai is, Julian.
Sure. So Relai is Europe's #1 Bitcoin app made in Switzerland. So we really try to make it as easy, as simple, and as user-friendly and as secure as possible for people to buy some Bitcoin It's really made for newcomers as well, so it should be like really hassle-free. You can just download the app, and within a couple of minutes, within a few clicks, you can buy your first Bitcoin. You can also sell your Bitcoin whenever you want. You can set up a savings plan. It's like automatically, let's say, invest $50 a week into Bitcoin and then forget about it. It just does it automatically. And also you can hold the Bitcoin yourself. That's very important for us, so that there's no counterparty risk. Even if our app goes down or our company goes bankrupt or whatever, you are always in control of your finances. And also you can, whenever you want, send and receive, of course. So really participate in this Bitcoin financial system. We started roughly 4 years ago, not even 4 years ago. It was in summer 2020 with zero money, zero customers, zero team, zero investors, zero. And now we've grown to quite a bit of a company. We're now 25 full-time employees and have more than 350,000 app downloads and more than 120,000 active users, investing around 50 million a month into Bitcoin through our application. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We're based in Zurich, Switzerland, but we're available in the whole EU, basically.
Okay, so around 50 million is the turnaround, or the people usually buy, I guess, or also the selling. Does it include the selling as well?
It includes the selling, but it's true that most of the people are buying. So more than 90% of all our orders are actually buy orders. So 50,000 orders, and most of them, more than 90% of them, are buy orders every month.
And so you grew up in a very tiny village somewhere, right, in the canton of Bern. I also come from more from a village background and living now in Zurich. But tell us, how did you, coming from there, somehow get into Bitcoin and apparently getting really enthusiastic about it, that you thought, okay, I need to build a company around Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's true that I grew up in a small village called Kappelen in the canton of Bern. It's a tiny village. At this point, maybe more than 1,000, but when I grew up there 30 years ago, it was probably less than 1,000 people. More cows than people. It's like a small farmer's village. And it's very close to that village. There's another village which is a bit bigger. Maybe now 5, back then 4,000 people living there. And that's where I then did my school, primary school and everything. That's where I went to school. That's also where we lived then, from when I was probably 6, 7 years old. And then I had a good friend of mine who I knew from school introduced me to Bitcoin. So he was actually earlier than I was, because he was a tech geek. He was always about gaming and the latest technologies, etc. He was always on Reddit and all these strange forums, etc. While I was not a tech guy. I was always interested and fascinated by finances, but also technology and also in innovation, but on a very high level, on a very no-code level, let's say. He was a lot deeper into technology and coding, etc. So this one afternoon, and probably this was 2015, so 9 years ago, I was 22. He introduced me to Bit because we were just hanging out in his apartment. I think he still lived with his mother then. And so we just hung out, and he showed me Bitcoin and also other cryptocurrencies. And I was just fascinated by this thing, because me more from a financial point of view, he more from a tech point of view. So he was talking about blockchain and mining and cryptography, etc. And I was more like, fuck, this is like money. This is an asset that has value. The value changes every second. And you can hold and trade and transact in it 24/7 without the need of any permission from a government or bank or any third-party middleman or institution. It just lives on the internet. It looks like a stock, but it's not really stock because there's no company behind it. It looks like gold, but there's no metal. There's nothing to touch. So it's virtual. It's also like a currency, but there's no government behind it. That was just super fascinating. I was like, this is certainly some of that certainly will shape the future in a big way if it's going to make it. But it was still so early. No one really cared about it in 2015 at all. I think one Bitcoin was $500. So yeah, I ended up buying with almost all of my money I had then, which was $500. I was buying one Bitcoin through him because it was too complicated for me. And that's the starting point where I was like, yeah, this is super cool, but it's much too complicated because not even I could, with my kind of interest for technology, but very high level, I couldn't even manage to buy Bitcoin. So how could my mom or my friends ever buy Bitcoin? And so that's probably where it started, the seed for Relai, because already then I thought, why isn't anyone making this much easier? This needs to be much easier. The Bitcoin mass adoption can happen. But it took another 3-4 years until we then started to really put together the idea and start concretely working on it.
But that sounds like you heard about it and it was totally clear to you that this is a big thing and you instantly fell in love. Because
well, yeah, somehow, but it's probably too easy to explain just like that. And probably over the years, my memory also started to not be 100% accurate. But like I knew that I was fascinated, but it was not like I understood it from day one. It took certainly another 2-3 years until I really understood it. And then I still was in this whole crypto frenzy and ICOs, and I thought everything will change, etc. I still didn't really understand then also the Bitcoin versus all the rest controversy, like that all the other cryptocurrencies don't really make that much sense, especially not for the money use case. So yes, I was definitely hooked from day one, but still didn't understand it deeply. I didn't have the conviction that I have now, because I think this conviction takes like thousands of hours of trying to understand this. I thought it was cool, and I was like, yeah, let's read about it and listen to some podcasts and just keep in touch with this technology. Let's see where it goes. It was just interesting to observe, and basically I just wanted to speculate on it. Because also then that shows my conviction was not strong. Like when it jumped like 10% to 550, I sold all my Bitcoin again. The whole Bitcoin I had, I sold it again through my friend. So I just basically WhatsApped him or called him or whatever back then was communication channel. And just said, look, sell it again. And he gave me back like $500 in cash plus the $50 in cash. And I thought it was super...
Best trader, trader of the year.
Yeah, best trader. Exactly. I mean,
genius.
10% within there. Exactly. So I didn't really understand the long-term implication of it. Otherwise, I would have held the Bitcoin. And then there was a lot of shit in between that was happening that was interesting, like, Ponzi schemes, stupid games on like Telegram where you could put 0.1 Bitcoin and it was like a roulette, so you could win 1 Bitcoin. Then I obviously always lost. I lost probably half a Bitcoin with that.
Yeah.
There was so much shit, like so many ICOs I participated. Some were short-term successful, so I made some money off them. Some were outright scams or just very bad projects that went to zero. So I made a lot of money, lost a lot of money over the years until probably then in 2018, 19, I got a bit more. Yeah, I just understood it a bit more on a deeper level and was less and less speculating on the crypto stuff and more really focusing on the Bitcoin stuff, which is then how Relai evolved in 2019. And from there on, obviously, I really got very deep in the rabbit hole. But it took a long time to acquire this knowledge and to acquire the conviction. So this is not just in one instant, this was all here. This was a very long process. That started back with this experience in the living room of my good friend in Aarberg in 2015.
All right. Yeah. I can see some parallels, I guess, to my own journey, to be honest. We all started with Bitcoin because it was the only coin around, right? And at least for me and my friends, it was like interesting, but I guess nobody believed in it that much because we bought it and we also sold it. Even like a friend of mine, he wanted to showcase how cool it is, and he sent some Bitcoin to a friend. No, not to a friend, to an adult, just to showcase this adult somewhere at a conference. I don't know. I think he was a student and he wanted to show it. And later, this amount, which was little, became like huge. And he never got it back because the adult was just like, okay, interesting. So I think we all had these early days of Bitcoin. It wasn't that important as it is now. And I think a few people, as you said, would have understood or could even fathom what would happen down the road. And I think it's also like you have all these stories with the pizza day and people selling Bitcoin for nothing because it was just experimental and fun and etc.
Yeah, very few people really understood the long-term implications of it. The people I have most respect for are those who found Bitcoin like 10 plus years ago and already then somehow put in the time and the long-term vision of like how could this play out in 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, and really understood it at such a deep level so that they could develop the conviction to really buy and hold. Because there were some like traders, some speculators, but those, and there's only just a very few here in Switzerland. For example, one is maybe Lucius Meiser, who is the Bitcoin Swiss chairman, because Swiss is the biggest company in Switzerland for Bitcoin and crypto. He's now their chairman. He's also one of the founders of the Bitcoin Association Switzerland, which was founded, both of them, the company and the association was, I think, founded in 2014. He was already in the space 2011. So by then he was already kind of an OG. And now obviously he's a super OG. He's also an investor in Relay, by the way. And he just like really understood how this long game will play out. And he already talked about it in podcasts, etc., like 10 years ago. Super crazy. Like for these people that are just, for more than 10 years now, they're just buying and holding and buying more. And they never sold. This is very fascinating. But most of us are not like this. But it's also fine. Not everyone can be such an outlier.
Definitely. And I had Lucius on the show as well. And he's a very kind, interesting guy. Definitely recommend listening to that episode. And his episode with the Swiss National Bank is just so funny that he goes there and he proposes that they should buy Bitcoin. And then every year he kind of rubs it in their noses how much money they could have made. Yeah. Not rubs it in, but making his point, right? That it could be a good investment. Yeah, I think we are guiding towards this conversation that I think I also have to address sooner or later, which is I'm actually more into ETH, Solana, all these coins. And I guess you have chosen to be Relay Bitcoin only for a reason, which we call colloquially Bitcoin maximalism is a word. Would you say you identify as a Bitcoin maximalist?
Not necessarily. I don't know if there's a clear definition out there for a Bitcoin maximalist. Many people in the space would probably associate Bitcoin maximalism with some toxic behavior, which I don't identify with. I think I'm just liberal. Everyone should focus on what he wants to focus on. Everyone should invest what you want to invest on. If people want to do ICOs, etc., that's totally fine. Everyone should do whatever they want. So I'm just focusing on Bitcoin very, very strictly. I had my fair share of experience with so many different coins and altcoins and ICOs, etc. I was an early investor I participated in the ICO of EOS. I think still the biggest ICO that ever happened. They were successful at the time. In 2017, they raised, I think, 4 billion.
They raised a lot, but now
they raised 4 billion.
That's crazy.
I don't know if they're still around now. I exited a long time ago with a profit. Yeah, I at least doubled my money and probably more. At the beginning, it was like coming out for I think $1 per coin, and then it very quickly went to like 5, and then went like up and down. So at one point, probably like after a year or so, I exited it again with a profit. But I did a lot of these things, and this was part of my learning journey. I then just at one point started to be most interested in the use case of money. And sound money, digital gold, a savings technology that helps everyone, as said, without the need for a bank or a central bank or government all over the world in a neutral, independent, decentralized way to store his wealth or purchasing power into the future, into the long-term future, not only 1 or 2 years, but like 10 years, 20 years, generations even. That for me is the biggest innovation, and it's the biggest revolution, and has the biggest potential out of pretty much everything, pretty much every technology. Maybe the only other technology that has a similar impact currently is AI, maybe also quantum computing, but like in the financial, let's say, in the financial world, Bitcoin for me is the absolute biggest, has the biggest impact, bigger impact than any other fintech, bigger impact than any other cryptocurrency. So that's why I really focus on that. And also Relay really focus on long-term saving, right? We want to make it easy for people to save in what we think is the best asset, best savings technology, best store of value that has ever been invented. That's why I focus on Bitcoin. I don't care about other things that much. I've been into that. I still own probably a little bit of Ethereum just from back in the days, and some Dogecoin because I find it funny. But, and you know, I don't have anything against that. I just think all these other coins are fundamentally different to Bitcoin. Almost any of them are focusing on the sound money use case. They're focusing on other things like Ethereum wants to be this dApp store, basically a decentralized platform for decentralized applications and stuff. That's fine. Let's see how that goes on smart contracts and scalability in different ways like Solana or NFTs or tokenization, or they have a lot of things that they focus on. It's all fine. It's just not as interesting to me as the money, sound money use case, and changing the whole world and the whole society, how our economy works, etc., with replacing fiat money with a better digital, global, censorship-resistant, unstoppable, independent money.
Yeah, that's interesting because when I look into the future for Bitcoin, I mean, I have to say, I agree that Bitcoin is a unique thing and nobody is competing with Bitcoin directly, while all the old L1s are basically competing for the same space, which is becoming this smart contract platforms. I imagine always they try to build this new digital world that it almost becomes like its own little economy. And that's why the token who needs to have value, else the network has no value, right? Is not safe, becomes kind of like a money in this economy. So that's how I look at it. But I'm going back to Bitcoin. I wonder how you see the future for Bitcoin, because if I, let's say, look into a little bit into the future, I can't look at 10 or 100 years. I'm not looking that far, but let's say 5 years or so. I believe it could become this new gold and it could go to 10 trillion or whatever, like 10x from here. But then it will stagnate and then it will be just this gold technology and it could become a bit boring. I wonder, do you see the same? That's how far I can see. That's what I believe in. Do you see like a step further? Do you believe like in this hyper Bitcoinization and everybody is using Bitcoin all over the world? Or what is your bull case for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think that's like the very obvious first step, that it will go to something right like digital gold, which like just as said, is store of value. And that's pretty clear, like we're very much on the road to this in the next maybe 5 to 10 years. If it's only that, it will still become bigger. Even if it only stays that, let's say like this, it will still become bigger in terms of market cap, I think, than gold, much bigger, because gold also has its limitations. And I would look at Bitcoin more as really the first pure store of value, where gold still has other use cases like jewelry and industry, whatever, and then so many other assets are misused as store of value. For example, real estate. Probably more than 50% of the whole market capitalization of all real estate in the world is actually monetary value. So it's just a monetary premium because, for example, pension funds or private individuals that have a lot of money, they are just buying up more houses that they could ever live in, just because they know it's a good store of value because the fiat money is broken as a store of value. Same goes with art. A lot of art, for example, is just crazily overpriced just because people use it as a store of wealth because it's scarce. And if money is not scarce, then people use all sorts of things just to preserve their value. And so I think all this monetary premium that is around with kind of scarce assets will be sucked into Bitcoin. Maybe not 100%, but a big part of it. So I think it will suck some of the monetary value out of gold. But while it will do that, it will also suck a lot of monetary value out of real estate, art, old-timers, diamonds, whatever is used still. And so I think it could be, even with this store of value only use case, it will become much bigger even than gold.
Okay.
But then one step further, it could also become much more than only a store of value, because if we have this sound financial basis, which we had, for example, also in the fiat world up until the 70s, when we went off the gold standard, we did have such a base, which was gold. The whole financial industry, and with it the whole global economy, for example, fiat currencies, banks, all sorts of different assets, indexes, derivatives, everything in the financial world was built on top of gold in the end, and now on top of fiat currencies. And I think this same thing could happen on Bitcoin. A lot of these things are now tried out on other chains, like, for example, Ethereum is mostly well known now for DeFi, right? And I think this kind of CeFi world that I just described was based on gold, and now the DeFi world could be based on Bitcoin. So with different layers that are being built, and for example, the internet had 7 layers so that it could scale. So while Bitcoin, the main chain, doesn't scale, and this could max do for digital gold, there are already layer 2s and layer 3s that are being built. Same on Ethereum, by the way. And so it's layer 2, for example, is Lightning, which is now being built, which we also are implementing at Relai already. And there are many other layers that will allow for much faster, much cheaper, instant 24/7 transactions. That will also allow for things like smart contract, and in turn for decentralized smart contracts and for NFTs, and basically for everything. So you could imagine a world where everything that we have now in the financial system is also living on Bitcoin. So you will have different, maybe fiat currencies based on Bitcoin, taproot assets. They are now putting stable coins on Bitcoin. And you could have banks like borrowing and lending. And then you could have decentralized exchange of all sorts of assets. These fiat stablecoins, Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, even other tokenized assets. This could all evolve. The whole financial system could be based and built upon the Bitcoin network at one point. And why would this make sense? Is because Bitcoin is the most decentralized, most independent, most scarce, and therefore most sound monetary basis, and most secure, if I didn't say that already, because of the proof of work money basis for the financial system that we can imagine.
Yeah, I would take the other side of that bet, just because, I mean, there's so much to say there. It sounds like, okay, you have this base, which we agree on, that Bitcoin is unique, but now you want to stack these other functionalities on top, which actually Ethereum is light years ahead, or like other new L1s that are coming and are innovating and really scaling. I'm not sure, like, you seem to then embrace those. I'm not sure if a lot of people actually embrace those innovations from the Bitcoin community. My understanding is, okay, whatever is new, no, it's not so good. Okay, originals are coming out. Oh no, it's bad for whatever reason. But you seem to be for some sort of innovation. As long as it doesn't touch the pristine first layer you build on top, then you're fine with innovation. That's what I'm getting.
Absolutely. Okay. I think that's a very important point. And in the Bitcoin community, there's a lot of conflict going on and toxic people going back and forth and different opinions, which is also good, I think, in a way, just to really secure this base chain. Like almost nothing will be allowed on this base chain, almost no change, which I think is good, because the base chain really needs to be just focused on security, and it needs to be very simple so they can't be attacked, and should also not be changed quickly. Like the monetary policy basically is really sacred, and if we start changing that, then basically the trust will be lost, because then we end up like a central bank that just whoever influences it, if they get corrupted, which a small group of people always get corrupted at one point, then we lose this independence and this decentralization, this security, or there's the risk that we lose that. So that's why the Bitcoin community will probably always defend this very fiercely. And that's, I think, the important point. While as long as nothing changes with the base chain, I'm super open. Everything could and should be built on top of it. That's then just free market building things that add value, maybe. It's not that I would not call myself a proponent of DeFi on Bitcoin. I think it's interesting. I think the most interesting piece of Bitcoin is this sound money, store of value, digital gold, which again, I think can be much bigger than gold is now. So it could this alone could make for another 10 up to maybe 100x in the future. Like if you think about right now, only 5% of the world basically owns Bitcoin, and almost no company and almost no nation owns Bitcoin. If it becomes a kind of a digital gold sort of thing, or store of much better store of value, then you would think that probably more than 50% of all the people, of all the nations, and of all the companies will hold at least some Bitcoin. If you think about Apple owning 1% of their balance sheet in Bitcoin, Tesla is already doing that, by the way, and other companies, big companies like Google, Amazon, Meta, etc., they only put 1% on their balance sheet, which I think is clear that this will happen soon, then there's much more than 10x. So to make the point, I'm open and I'm interested in these innovations that are coming on top of Bitcoin, but I don't think necessarily Bitcoin like needs that. And I'm much more interested in really putting my time and work into making Bitcoin work and distributing Bitcoin to the world as store of value. Mm-hmm. And even if it's just that, I think it's already super interesting.
No, that's great. And Julian, I would like now to focus. Now we actually switched the order. I would actually now like to focus a little bit more on Relai and what you can tell us about like running this company and maybe the specifics of the idea behind it and the limitations that it has or the legal surroundings. Because, for instance, I think you have like some limits how much you can put on there every month without KYC. I think there's some limits around advertising and all that stuff. And I think that's super interesting. Tell us a bit about the challenges of, or in which, surrounding Relai has positioned itself, what the niche is and how you developed this business case.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy case, being an early stage startup based in Switzerland, focusing on something that is so new like Bitcoin, and then trying to make it as easy as possible, because Bitcoin is already technically complicated and like people don't really understand it, people don't get it. Certainly most of the regulators and most of like other partner companies like banks, etc., don't understand it. So this is already quite hard. So you have a lot of limitations, that's true. How we started is really with the mission of making it as easy as possible for people to get into Bitcoin and lowering that first hurdle to jump as much as possible. That's why we found a way through being in Switzerland, like Swiss made, Bitcoin only, so not touching any other asset or coins or whatever, and being a non-custodial or self-custodial. So we as a company never hold the money on behalf of our customers. Through that, we were able to lower this threshold really massively and become much better than anyone else in onboarding new customers. That's why we now, after not even 4 years, have onboarded more than 100,000 people on Bitcoin, is because they don't have to do KYC, as you said, up to 1K a day and 100K a year. That's, based on Swiss law, on being Bitcoin only, and especially not holding the Bitcoin on behalf of the customers. That's why we can do that. And through reverse solicitation is called that we can also do that in Europe. So we can offer that to Europe, to all the EU customers, but that's another limitation. We cannot actively acquire people in Europe. So we cannot market this actively in Europe until we have a European license, which we are now in the process of getting in France. And then with the new regulatory framework, MiCA, which you're probably aware of, which will start really getting into force next year, 2025, we will then also be able to actively market our service in Europe, but unfortunately without the no KYC part, because Europe, while Switzerland still acknowledges this, Europe is banning this with MiCA. And so, there's always this back and forth. We also have now problems with the Apple App Store. So for Europe, for the EU regulators, it's basically fine if we just, on this reverse solicitation basis, passively offer our service to EU customers. Google, as a platform, is also fine with it. So on the Google Play Store, everyone can download the app on their phone, even if they're in an EU country. For Apple, this was a problem. So the Apple policy said strictly, after the FTX collapse, now 1.5 years ago, they said strictly no Bitcoin or crypto apps in our app stores if they don't have the according license. and they didn't accept our Swiss license for EU countries.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to a little bit of a legal fight with them, or not fight, a friendly conversation with support of our lawyers. And then we got the app back through very expensive legal opinions that they accepted. We got the app back to our most important markets: Germany, France, Italy, Austria, and Spain.
Mm-hmm.
But then we stopped for the rest of the almost like 40 countries in the EU, like the smaller ones, Nordics, Eastern Europe, etc. We said it's not worth it. So we are unfortunately now not in the Apple App Store in most of these countries.
Okay.
So yeah, there's just maybe some examples of a lot of limitations that we have. We are also not able to get an EU bank account currently because we're a Swiss company and into Bitcoin and having this low KYC threshold. No bank is working with us, even though we are very big and would generate a lot of revenue for them. Would be actually a very interesting customer, but they're like, no. So also for that, we need to wait until we have the MiCA license.
But did I understand it correctly? And there was a word which I didn't understand, which reverse something.
Solicitation.
Reverse solicitation. So through this reverse solicitation, you initially had this benefit because you could benefit from the Swiss law, which is kind of forgiving. I mean, $1,000 or francs per day, up to max 100,000. I think that's plenty for retail users, right? You don't really need much more. Obviously, if you're a business, it's a different case. So you could benefit from that and go to Germany would this have also been possible in Germany directly? Let's say in a different world, you would have been born in Germany and you said, I wanted to start in Germany. Would this have been possible, or was that due to the Swiss law you could do that?
No, it's really only possible if you're based in Switzerland. Only possible out of Swiss regulation. And that's also why with the MiCA regulation, the EU is basically now cutting the cord here. So that this is also not possible anymore out of Switzerland for EU customers.
And now you're going, if I did my research, I think you're going to France. And then you have a parallel Europe business, I guess. Same tech, different entity, start from scratch. Or not start from scratch, but port your customers over if they're from the EU and do the same thing.
Exactly. We will end up with a Swiss holding company and then 2 operational companies, one in Switzerland for all the Swiss users. Everything will stay exactly the same. And then with an operational company in Paris, France. So in the EU, this license will then also turn into a MiCA license at the beginning of next year. And then all the EU customers will go through this entity with a slightly different product, just basically full KYC product. Yeah.
Okay. And how much did that hurt you? Because it sounds like it's very much against the Bitcoin spirit to do KYC. However, there's a law and you have to adhere to the law.
Exactly. Of course it hurts. Of course it would be easier like this. Not even for privacy reasons. Yes, many Bitcoiners are also privacy advocates and they don't like to do KYC, but mostly it benefited us because we were really able to make it super easy for people to onboard. No one likes doing KYC. So if they have an option where they can, without going through the KYC process, just download the app and start buying, etc. That's super cool. That also helped us onboard so many people. Now this will go away. Of course, it hurts. But as you said, we need to do that. And by law, this will also not be possible for any of our competitors anymore. So we just need to follow the rules, all of us. And through our Bitcoin-only and non-custodial setup, we will still be able to make it easier to onboard for people. Yes, everyone needs to do KYC, but it will be a less burdensome process, less cumbersome process than if you onboard with a custodial exchange. And also the usage, because we deliver the Bitcoin directly in your self-custodial wallet, using it, sending, receiving, buying, selling with bank transfer, instant SEPA, Apple Pay, Google Pay, credit card, 24/7, this will still make it easier, more smoother than the experience with other custodial apps, for example, Bitpanda. Especially in the future, like MiCA will be very hard, very strict on everything that is custodial and multi-coin, which is why we think we're in the right niche to still offer a very nice user experience and be faster and be cheaper with a Bitcoin-only / self-custodial setup. That's what we're betting on. So it's not cool, of course, but we need to adhere to the law. but we're still confident that with our niche, we can be one of the best, if not the best, user experience for Bitcoiners.
And you mentioned before that you couldn't do until now marketing abroad, but I think you probably have more users abroad than from Switzerland just because of the populations, etc. How does a company grow without doing active marketing? What is in the gray zone? What is allowed? What are your tips for maybe entrepreneurs who are in the same situation?
Yeah, that's exactly what we have tried to figure out the last 3.5 years because we were not able to spend money. So first, it's important to define what is active marketing, what not, which is not super clearly defined, for example, by BaFin in Germany or like any other regulator. So it's hit and miss. You need to find out. So active marketing, as we have found out, are things mostly that are clearly like we are spending money to actively target German people or Austrian people or Italian people. So for example, if you do LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads or Instagram ads, that you can like select, I want to target German people, and you pay for it so that this is shown to German people. That's not okay. Also, if you do social media posts, organic social media posts with our Relay account or I with my personal account, and I say, dear German people, download the Relay app and start using it and buy Bitcoin. That's not okay because it's a direct, even though we don't pay for it, it's still a direct addressing the people living in Germany, for example. So that's not okay. We've learned that. Also, sponsoring events in any of these countries is not okay. We don't do that anymore. We did it once
Okay.
because we didn't know in Austria and 2 years ago, and we don't do it anymore. But then there's a lot of things you can still do. For example, our referral program. It's just there. It's like whoever downloads our app, it's there. They are informed that whenever they invite people, they get a certain percentage out of everything these people invest. If they refer it to a German person, we cannot control that. And we don't actively promote that. We don't tell them, you should invite as many German people as you want. No, we offer the opportunity to earn a bit of money if people refer it, and that's it. So that's actually one of our main growth drivers. That's how we grow very organically. So everything that is organic can be done. We can post about Bitcoin, about why our app is cool, why our users like to buy Bitcoin with Relay. We can post this on our social media. We can write blog posts about these things as long as it's not actively targeting people living in another country.
And what does have the biggest impact, do you find? Do you track it? I've seen you have also 2 podcasts yourself. Is that a big driver, or your own appearances on different podcasts? Or share a little bit with the magic of acquiring customers without actively targeting them.
I think it's a combination. There's not one thing that like this works, and because otherwise we would only do that, right? I think it needs to be a combination of everything that you mentioned. What really works very well is the referral program and affiliate program. So either users or influencers find out about us and they like us and they just share it with their communities. Building a community ourselves was very important. Like we have Relay Squad, for example, which is like a fan club of a bit more than 100 people that are just like, they just love what we do. They're Bitcoiners, so they go out and talk about Bitcoin and us at meetups, at conferences, etc. That helps. We go to conferences a lot. I'm a speaker a lot about Bitcoin, and obviously always mention that I'm the co-founder of Relay. So without having to tell people, download the app and use it to buy Bitcoin, people start knowing about us, right? We regularly get into PR, so into media. Forbes wrote about it. Cointelegraph, the biggest in the crypto world, wrote about us. BTC Echo is writing about us regularly, Bitcoin Magazine, etc., etc. Then just social media posting. Like we post many times a day, especially on X, but also on LinkedIn. We have, I think LinkedIn probably close to 10K, X more than 40K followers. That helps, right? While we never tell them to buy Bitcoin with Relay, it helps that they know us and many of them are users and they refer. So everything around content is very important. As you said, I have my podcast, we have our blog, we have a newsletter. We put a lot of content out there that then also improves our SEO. SEO and ASO has been very important for us so that we don't have to go out to people directly. But if people are putting in certain keywords like how to buy Bitcoin easily, how to hold Bitcoin yourself, what's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. If they type things like that into Google and or their app store, you can already count that we are one of the top because we have invested a lot in search engine optimization, SEO, and App Store optimization as ASO.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And maybe to wrap this up, and still have the listener questions, but maybe one more thing about you raised money or you announced that you raised money just earlier this year. Can you tell us a little bit how much money did you raise? What is the company worth right now? And what was your pitch or what would you say the winning argument that you got people like Lucius, for instance, on board investing in you, continuing to invest in Relai?
Yeah, sure. So we have raised close to 10 million, probably around 9 million to date in, I think, 3 rounds or so. So we're raising money quite regularly. And the last raise was at a valuation of $30 million US dollar. And I think here again, there's no silver bullet about why investors have decided to invest. Also, we have many different investors, like probably 6 different VCs, plus 20 different angel investors like Lucius, and also 2 or 3 angel syndicates, which is basically a bit in between. Then we did a crowdfunding round as well. Probably all of these investors have different reasons why they have invested. But I think what we are really good at is execution. So with not a lot of money, we are able to make big impact because we are a very small but very good team, like a very high quality team, and is highly ambitious. We have a very results-oriented, achievement-oriented company culture. And we have a very easy case. Like it's a very straightforward case that if we just continue on our niche, we have chosen the right niche of Bitcoin-only non-custodial and making it super easy for people. If we just hammer on that in the next 5 to 10 years and expand even globally with that case, then it's just a huge case and it's quite a clear road to becoming a unicorn if we execute it right. And I think, as I said before, execution is really our number one priority, and we have a very clear focus, and we basically just delivered over the last not even 4 years. We have grown from the first year, it was a half a year because we started in summer. The first year we did 30K in revenue, and then we did 300K next year, and then we did close to $1 million the next year, and then we're just growing massively year over year, quarter over quarter, month over month, and we're just good in doing our business.
Wait, but I did some math before. I don't know if you've seen it. I was like typing, and you mentioned that you have like around 50 million, like of turnover, and you take maximum 2.5%. But I guess most people are going more towards 1.2 or something.
It's like 1.5. 1.5% is like the margin.
1.5. So that would be
the net margin.
Okay. Because you'll probably also have other costs. With 50 million, right?
No, that's just because some users are paying 1%, some are paying 2.5%, and Relai private users that are investing like $500,000 sometimes are even getting lower. So the average that we make, like the revenue that we make out of the volume, so the 50 million a month is the current volume, and then 1.5% is basically what we get, and then we have all the costs, a lot of costs also.
So currently with 50 million, you would have around 750,000 of revenue. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's about correct.
So are you break even with this amount right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
This year we have now made it to break even.
Nice. Congrats. That's always a big number. And we have been in a crazy bull run. Hopefully it continues because it all falls with kind of those cycles, right? But now we have the halvening coming up, etc. What is your projection for the Bitcoin price end of the year?
Yeah, it's so obviously always hard to say, but always interesting. We're waiting for the 100K since a long time, and for a long time now. And I think this year we could do it. If not this year, then when? Because as you said, that the ETFs have been approved, so a lot of institutional demand is coming. There's the halving in a few days, and also the interest rate seems to at one point be lowered, and the fiat financial system is showing more and more of its cracks. So a lot of people are looking for alternatives around the world. So yeah, I think Bitcoin as this store of value in digital gold will also, with current inflation rate, etc., will just become more and more attractive. I don't think it will go, there will be no like God candle after the halving, for example, or whatever. I think it's just more going to be a continuous ride up. But at the end of the year, I would expect that we land at 100K US dollars. But of course, you never know. There could be a lot of stuff happening. Maybe China bans Bitcoin once more or whatever.
No, because today the Hong Kong ETFs were, if I'm not mistaken, they were Bitcoin and Ethereum. Did I get that right? I haven't fact-checked it because I've just seen it quickly on Twitter that the ETFs are approved in Hong Kong, at least, which is China somehow.
Yeah, so even positive news out of China.
Yeah, but I haven't fact-checked it. It could also be, we get so many spam fake news on there, so I haven't had the time to check.
That's true.
Unfortunately. Yeah, now let's go to the listener's question because it's almost up to time. One of the questions was, most Bitcoiners are celebratory about the ETFs. This listener was surprised by that, as it seems contrary to the narrative of Bitcoin being a transaction system. How do you think Bitcoin transitions from being held in ETFs to being a permissionless transaction system?
The ETF doesn't change anything about the permissionless Bitcoin system. You just lose these benefits if you hold Bitcoin through an ETF. So as long as you don't choose to do that, as long as you just buy Bitcoin, for example, with Relai and then hold them yourself, you couldn't care less about what the people are doing with the ETFs. What the ETFs are enabling, and that's probably why a lot of Bitcoiners are cheering for them, is that big institutional investors like pension funds, endowment funds, certain size hedge funds, or whatever, huge institutions, they couldn't buy Bitcoin before. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't. And now they can through this paper wrapper because they need some traditional finance product from some big institution like BlackRock so that they can invest. But we as normal people, let's say retail investors, we don't need that. Actually, if we invest through an ETF, there's only fees that are coming and some disadvantages, like it's not censorship resistant anymore, you're not in control anymore, you have limits, etc. So for us normal people, there are basically only disadvantages. But if you're a big corporation, then there are advantages. So it enables them. And also it leads to BlackRock really market and start their sales engine for Bitcoin and educate all their very rich clients that they are managing more than 10 trillion US dollar. They are now educating all of these clients about the pros of Bitcoin. So I think it almost only has positive things. It's just really important to use Bitcoin as you want to use it. And I think most of the retail investors should think about holding the Bitcoin themselves because then they have all the advantages.
And the same listener also wanted to know about the KYC aspect of Relai, since you guys have the bank details from the clients, because when you buy, you have to enter the bank details. Could this be traced back to the BTC wallet from your side?
Yes, I mean, we do. So we're not, I said from a privacy perspective, we're not no KYC. We are light KYC and we don't have, so there's no KYC process that we have to do. But still, of course, you send us money from a bank. And so we see the name of the customer, the IBAN, and mostly also the address, depending on the bank. So we do have these personal identifiable information. And we are required to hold them for 10 years by law, so the regulators require that. But we don't have to give them out, so they stay with us. But of course, there's a risk with this attached as well. So it's not anonymous. If you really want to buy anonymous Bitcoin, there is only one physical alternative, which is a Bitcoin ATM. Actually, now in Switzerland, that's, I think, also gone. I think also there you now need to do KYC. Or in the digital world, you can use a peer-to-peer exchange like BISC or HODL, but that's not user-friendly at all. But if you want that, if that's important for you, then you can go there. Also, they're more expensive, so there are always trade-offs. But for Relai, we optimize for a nice user experience and convenience, not necessarily for privacy. That said, it's already good if you don't have to upload any documents and don't give us any additional information, KYC information. So we are really the lowest hurdle for the lowest barrier of entry, also in terms of KYC. But yes, there is some amount of KYC. We do know our customers. We do know the names.
All right. And what do you think about, let's say this dividing things like big blocks or ordinals, rare sets, stuff like that. What is your take on that? Let's hone in on ordinals, because I like ordinals. I got a ton of ordinals. Can you, like, when you onboard on Relai, you actually get a wallet. The app is a wallet, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's your own wallet that you built or that you use a white label solution. Can I hold ordinals on there?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't think so. I mean, we didn't actively, I don't know. We didn't actively build something that maybe actually you can, just because it's a normal Bitcoin wallet, right? I don't know. I'm really not into ordinals.
Okay, that also answers the question. So not into ordinals. Okay, good. But that means, I think you can't then, because I'm also not
Probably
that
not.
technical.
We would probably enable this. Like we haven't actively enabled it, let's say. So
yeah.
So I don't think.
I remember when it came out, that was very early. Then you only had a handful of wallets that were actually ordinal compatible. And so I believe right out of gate, if you don't do anything, it wouldn't work, I assume.
Probably not. And also we didn't have one like user request to do so.
Okay.
If many users ask us, hey, we want to store our ordinals with Bitcoin, then maybe we will think about it. I'm not against ordinals. What I don't like is that the ordinals are basically congesting the network even more on chain. I don't understand why they need to be on chain, why they can't be on a second or third layer. There are Rare Toshi, for example, or others or Blockstack. They already enable to do some like ordinals kind of thing or NFT kind of thing and it's still secured and connected to the Bitcoin blockchain, but it's just much more scalable. So I don't understand why we are clogging Bitcoin network with these ordinals, because the transaction fees are going through the roof then sometimes when there's a lot of demand for inscriptions, which I think could be avoided. But again, I'm not into the details there.
Yeah, me neither technically, from the technical side. Don't know why it has to be like that, but I guess people would say, because you can. It's like permissionless. Yeah. If you can, let's do it. For me, it was more an outlet for speculation and some fun. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Julian, to come on the show. And it was a pleasure having you on. Where should people go? You have a clear call to action, maybe not directed to the German listeners if there are any, but just in general.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonas. This was a blast. And if you want to learn more about Bitcoin and or Relai, just basically go to relai.app, or you can also download the app and check it out if it's available for your country. And me personally, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter or X. You can follow me there, see what I'm up to, and also DM me if you want. And same goes for Relai, relai.app. We're on both of these platforms mainly. And very happy to hear if you have any questions or feedback. You can also connect directly with us in the app. There's a chat button. Yeah, so let us know what you think.